Welcome to another session of A Life in Music. My name is Frank Opolko. Christopher Smith is not only a talented low brass specialist and big band arranger by training, but in fact his real instrument may be the ensemble itself. From big bands and concert halls to the classrooms of Vanier College, Smith has spent a lifetime bringing musicians and music together. His arrangements, like the one you're listening to now, don't simply support the music, they breathe, they lift and inspire. Before we talk, this is Call from the Orient on A Life in Music. So Christopher Smith, thanks for inviting me into your secret space today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about so many things, but the first thing I want to get to is in the introduction, we played Call from the Orient, and you played bass trombone, you arranged and you co-wrote the tune, but the copyright date was 1991, you were 31.
That's right.
And it was only released on Steve Rosenblum's record last year, 2025. So that's 34 years?
Yeah.
So what was the deal with that?
Well, Steve was friends with Jerry Danovich, who was directing the McGill Alumni Band at the time, and he would assign me one of these tunes, about one a year, for one for each concert, and I would arrange it and we'd play it with the group that we had there, mostly, the name suggests, McGill Alumni.
Right.
And then after he retired from his day gig of being a fairly well-known and well-respected psychiatrist, he decided he wanted to put them all out on recording, and so he had them recorded by a band and some other arrangements made as well by me and by Michael Johansik, and we made an album.
Terrific album too.
Thank you.
I have to say, I really enjoyed listening to it. So that was when you were 31. Take me back 10 years. Mm-hmm. How did we get to that point? You had just finished, I believe, having a Bachelor of Music at McGill.
Yep, hadn't even finished yet.
You hadn't even finished. Okay, so you were dragging it on.
Huh? You're assuming I did it all in time. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I was full-time for a year.
Okay.
And then I was in decreasing course load for the next, I hate to say how many it was, but then, in fact, at one point, at 1 year, I had no course load at all, and I wasn't sure I was going to go back and finish the bachelor's.
Okay.
Because when I first got into McGill, I thought, I'm going to be an orchestral bass trombonist.
Right.
And I was studying with the right guy, too, Ted Griffith.
Yes,
who was,
sure.
The father of a lot of trombonists, the spiritual father, that is.
Right.
But after my first year at McGill, I realized I wasn't going to be a full-time symphony player. And I was getting very much into the writing, and I started getting work writing and playing out in the world too. And so it was only when I decided that I was going to go on and get a master's degree in composition that I went back and finished off the darn bachelor's degree.
Okay, so you had a kind of torturous journey, mostly because you weren't sure about what you were going to do with the trombone?
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of musicians, because when you go to school in music, it's a little bit like going to school in communications or philosophy or something like that. There isn't a job of philosopher waiting for you at the end of the degree.
Right.
And in music, the only steady employment there is in symphony orchestras. And so if you're not going to be a full-time orchestra trombone player, then you have to figure out what you're going to do. Fortunately, there's an awful lot of jobs to do in music that are not just playing in a symphony orchestra, so that worked to my advantage.
So you mentioned Ted Griffiths as a kind of a mentor. He was to a lot of trombone players.
Absolutely.
It was like a little family of trombone players during that time.
It's funny that my first mentor was not involved in schools at all. It was Vic Vogel, who ran a big band. And I don't know how I caught his eye somehow, but I think it was just the fact that I went up to him once and I said, "Mr. Vogel, I've written a chart. Would your band like to play it?" And I was 17. And it wasn't a good chart.
That's great.
But I guess he liked my moxie, and I actually played with him for about the next 5 years. And in the meantime, he lent me scores and answered questions. I learned quickly that if I bought him a beer, I could get could talk to him and get answers to my questions for as long as it took him to finish the beer.
Okay, very smart.
Very worth it.
That's
as well.
That's terrific. You went, but you did eventually finish at McGill. Eventually,
yes.
But you went to Eastman
Yes.
School of Music in Rochester.
Yep. And preparing me to go to Eastman, in fact, was Don Habib, who was the teacher of jazz composition and arranging at Concordia.
Right.
And he got me up to speed, and he was acquainted with the teachers at Eastman. I went there exclusively to study with Bill Dobbins and Rayburn Wright, who are two remarkable pedagogues in jazz writing, and there they were both in the same school, and so I couldn't pass up that opportunity.
Bill Holman was there as well. Before, did you get a chance to meet Bill Holman? He was probably the arranger for every studio gig.
I had a master class with him, and I had a private lesson with him. And,
what was that like?
Well, that was really something. He was very brief, but very incisive in his commentary. And it's because he was meeting a lot of composers at that time, and so he had to get us out of the way quickly. But everything he said was pure gold, and it affected me very much.
That's amazing. Just a personal note, who was taller, you or him?
Oh, me.
I thought he was a pretty tall guy.
He is. Well, I was taller than Stan Kenton, too.
And Holman arranged for Stan Kenton.
He certainly did.
You had really an incredible education, I would say.
It was.
And was able to... Did it, at some point when you got back after Eastman, did it prepare you for yourself to say, okay, now I'm a professional musician?
No.
Okay.
No. I always felt like I was kind of scrambling to keep ahead. One thing that Eastman did, though, is it sort of put me over the threshold for how people might consider me to be maybe a better than average writer. And I have to say that in my head, I'm equally good on trombone or on writing, but I know that out there in the real world, I'm probably considered a better writer than a trombone player. There's a lot of good trombone players out there.
Yeah.
And through self-defense, I learned how to be a pretty good writer.
That's great. You know, a friend of ours, Billy Kerr, composes and arranges. He told me that trombone players tend to be really good arrangers.
It's true.
What do you think of that comment?
Absolutely. I found it myself, and I think I have a little bit of insight there. Is trombonists are playing often accompaniment roles, and so that makes us, just on the face of it, more team players than soloists. We're not out there for our own ego. We're out there to support the band, and it's only a natural step from there to being the ultimate support person of all time, which is to say the arranger of the chart. You have to give everybody something interesting to do, and spread out the joy a little bit.
That's fantastic. I totally agree. J.J. Johnson, Bob Brookmeyer, John Fetchuk. These are great trombone players and great arrangers, I would say. So you've spent your career actually moving between playing trombone and tuba, arranging, composing, and conducting and teaching, especially at Vanier College.
That's right.
Which one is can you say reveals who Christopher Smith really is as a musician?
It's funny you should say that, because I wouldn't have had an answer for you before 2 years ago.
Oh.
And I think that what I was doing is I had decided early on, after my first year of university, that I was going to play, teach, and write. And that was going to be a three-prong approach, and let the market determine what I actually did with my life. And I ended up keeping all three going.
Right.
But when all is said and done, now that I'm retired from teaching, I look back and I think that, aside from my own children, probably the best thing I've done with my life is the teaching. I've turned out so many good students, and they've gone on to really great things. And
we'll continue talking, but I want everyone to hear a little bit of your arrangement. This one is arranged and co-composed by Christopher Smith. So that's a little bit of Fiesta for Paquito, arranged and co-written with the bass trombonist Christopher Smith. That was great. I love that. I love that piece.
Well,
anything you can add to it, to that?
Well, it's just sort of funny that Paquito is known as a jazz musician in an Afro-Cuban style, and that piece was written in a samba style. So there was a little bit of a disconnect going on there, but it didn't seem to hurt the tune at all. It's what the tune wanted to be, and so you have to just serve the tune as it goes. Right. Make it the best version of that tune that it can be.
Okay.
Even if it steps outside the source material. And I think this is the very best way to write a style exercise, because sometimes you write a style exercise like you're trying to sound like Monk or Wayne Shorter or whoever, and then every once in a while you get one of these style exercises that just picks up and walks away on its own legs and wants to be itself. Mm-hmm. And these are sometimes the ones that end up being bigger than the sum of their parts.
Great. Well said. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about your decades-long career teaching at Vanier. Mm-hmm. We mentioned it before, but has a student ever come up to you and said something that taught you something?
Yes, constantly. And I think it was particularly when a student said that they appreciated the class they had with me because I wasn't trying to turn them into me. I was trying to turn them into the best version of them.
Okay.
And it's funny that came back to me because that was exactly what I was thinking after I finished my master's degree, and I had Bill Dobbins and Ray Wright as teachers. Ray Wright is very much he's trying to help you be the best version of you that you can be, and Bill Dobbins is the one who's more like, well, you've come to study with me, you're going to learn how to do it my way.
Okay.
And there's value in both for sure, but I just felt that I was better able to try to get inside the student's head and make them the best version of what they could be and help that piece be the best version of that piece as well.
That's great. While we're talking about the students, and they've changed over the years, so has the technology.
Sure.
So has the way that they approach writing. I know that you are not that familiar with AI, and thank goodness.
No.
But what happens with students who want to experiment with it or want to look at that as the future?
Well, I would tell them not to. Because AI, it will give you sort of a watered down compilation of a whole bunch of different influences that sound kind of like something else that you may have heard before, but there isn't any real cohesion to it, and it isn't a human being driving it. And that always makes very insipid music. It's thin and not,
Mm-hmm.
You might have the basic beat or the basic tonality, but there's nothing that really grabs your brain and makes sense with it. And what you need to do as a composer is you need to get out a pencil if necessary. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it on a computer or just playing it without writing it down, but you got to get out something and sit down and create. And then tomorrow you create again. And it doesn't really matter if it's any good because you're practicing.
Yeah.
When you're practicing trombone, you're not asking yourself, did I play that scale absolutely perfectly? And likewise, when you're practicing composing, you don't necessarily have to make every tune a winner. But one of them is going to be, because it's statistically improbable that you're going to write 30 tunes in a row and one of them is not going to be really good.
Okay.
But that will never happen with AI. No AI tune will ever be really good. It'll just be medium at best and sucky at the worst.
Well, that's great advice. You've retired from teaching, but you must look at some of these 17 and 18-year-olds as you were when you were 17, 18, 19, and you know what's going through their head. You know they've got it all. Some of them have all figured out. They know that they're great and everything. I know, but it's that look in their face when they look at you, going, "Yeah, I know." But so what is it exactly that you can tell them, or you would tell someone listening to this interview who is that age and is really ambitious enough to try to have a career in music?
Well, first of all, absolutely. If they're 17, 18 and they're coming in there and they've worked really hard and they've acquired a certain amount of skills, this is great. This shows that they're serious, and this is what they're going to have to be doing for the rest of their lives anyway. You never stop learning. You always keep getting influences from things and transcribing and using your ears. Of course, I'm not young enough to know everything anymore. But It's just the idea that, yes, they want to be as good as they can possibly be in whatever they touch, and this is good. This is what they should strive for. They should try to be the best at whatever they're doing, because that's how you get really good at something.
What do you miss about teaching? I mean, I know that you probably miss nothing when you first stopped, but everybody who retires, myself included, always gravitates back to something they really enjoyed, and they're saying, well, why I can still do that.
Yeah.
So what's the thing?
You're not going to like this answer very much. First of all, the things that I don't miss at all, course outlines and grading. I think it's ridiculous that a student comes up to me with some composition that they've poured their very heart and soul into, and I say, B. That's horrible. That's soul destroying to do that. And I hated doing that. And the course outline was part and parcel of that. Yeah. And that it's a contract that we are going to go from point A to point B, damn it. Yeah. And there aren't going to be any bifurcations on the way. We're not going to go off the trail here. And I disliked that too. However, the thing that I miss, which is kind of funny, is just telling people what to do. As in, okay, now you're going to write me and you're going to do that, and show up next week having written this. And then they show up and they've done it.
Okay.
And it's great. And I always tell them too, don't worry about whether I'm going to like it or not. I don't care. I don't like any of my students' work. So you may as well please yourself. As long as you have done, like, use this vocabulary or gone through this path, then that's adequate for me. That will get you the grade. But then again, that's it. It's grade. Why are we composing for grades? That's insane.
Right.
It's a terrible way to create.
I totally agree with you. In the arts, it's totally unnecessary. About a week ago, you sent me a copy of Johnny Come Lately, Billy Strayhorn, and it was 1942, and he wrote it for the Duke Ellington Band. And so I went back and re-listened to that, and I realized what an odd piece it is, really. Very much. It's got little snippets of melody, and it definitely belonged in Ellington's songbook. Yeah. And he also loved trombone play. There's great trombone in that tune. So what drew you to arranging that tune?
Well, I had had a master class, a lesson with Bob Brookmeyer, who I went down to New York and studied with a couple of times after that too. And I played for him one of my latest pieces, and he said at the end of it, "Oh my God, I've got a headache. There's way too much going on here. This one measure, there's enough to write an entire tune on, and we hear it here once and then we never hear it again. You have to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Be ecological about this. Reduce the amount of material, reuse as much as you can, recycle things, turn it around and turn it into something new." And so I approached Johnny Come Lately, that was the very next arrangement I did, with the idea that I wasn't going to use anything that didn't come from the tune itself. So everything you hear in that arrangement was derived from the melody and harmony of Johnny Come Lately.
When you look back at the young musicians sitting in front of you at Vanier, what gives you hope for the future of music? Is there hope?
Yes, for sure there's hope. Is the fact that each of them is coming into the business brand new, without any of the baggage that I have. They can do things that I can't do because I'm stuck in the old way of doing things. Like I still compose with a pencil, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Right.
And some of them, they jump onto a computer. My daughter was a composition major, and she could compose directly to laptop without a pencil or a piece of staff paper in sight. And my mind was blown. I couldn't figure out how she could do that. My students do that regularly. They use the technology without being a slave to it, which is great. They understand that in the business, it isn't like you get signed to a label and then you become a millionaire. It's never going to work that way. So they understand what it's going to take in order to actually make a living in music after that, with the merchandising and the promotion and the social media, and all the rest of that other stuff. But there's still some things like managing your bandmates. Having friends and behaving like human beings around them. Yeah. That hasn't changed. That won't change at all. And just like I said once to somebody who was going into the trades, I said, you know what distinguishes a really good electrician from a mediocre electrician? It's not knowing how to put the wires in, because all electricians know this. They have to pass a test, so they're all going to do it right. The thing that makes a really good electrician is the one who talks to his workmates and the clients well, and communicates and takes care of all that business. And it's the same thing with a lot of musicians. Some musicians are remarkable prodigies, but they never get out there because they just don't have the skills.
Right.
And I think what I'm seeing in the kids today is that a lot of them do have the skills.
Great.
And that makes me feel good.
Great advice, Christopher Smith. This is Johnny Come Lately, arranged by my guest. And you played bass trombone on this one, too?
I played bass trombone on that.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Christopher Smith reminds us that jazz isn't simply music we inherit. It's something we keep alive by sharing it. Through his playing, his arranging, and perhaps most importantly, his teaching, Christopher has spent a lifetime helping musicians discover their own voices. And in doing so, he's helped ensure that Montreal's remarkable jazz story continues, one student, one arrangement, and one new generation at a time. I'd like to thank Christopher for the music and for the conversation. I'm Frank Opolko. This has been A Life in Music.